Hello, in this video I'll show you even more tips and tricks you can use in 3ds Max here.
And also guys, be sure to check out my new course, Redesign and Remake, where I'll show you how you can either faithfully recreate old game assets or give them a fresh spin. Take old characters and give them your own unique look. So, link is in the description.
So last time I got this result right here, and this is fine if you have an object that you just want to create this kind of surface detail, but sometimes you want your object to open up, for example, and if we open this up you can see there's nothing inside. So sometimes you want your objects to be more solid and watertight here. So how can we do that? What we can simply do is just select edges and hold shift, extrude down, and simply insert loops and then target weld. Right, but first I want to even this out right here. So I will hold shift. Here I'm not really using snaps, but you can use snap as well. Alright, and then you can simply extrude down here. In order to match up with the bottom of this, you can right click here, Options, Enable Axis Constraints. So default hotkey is Alt-D, and so when I press S to activate snaps, axis constraints will actually create a little circle right here. And so now you can choose which axis you want to be active, let's say Y or X. Sometimes if you do this, you can accidentally select something. So for example, let's say I try and click on Y right here and accidentally select this edge here, but notice how the Y axis has been changed. Now all I have to do is just press Ctrl Z and the axis still remains here. I'll go back to our previous selection right here. I can hold Ctrl and click here to convert it to vertex. I find vertices just a little bit easier to work with. And now let's say select this vertex and then I can snap it to the bottom of right here. Now if axis constraints were off, if I try to snap it, it will go there on all axes. But with axis constraints, it's just the currently enabled axis right here. Alt-D, S to turn off axis constraints and snaps, and there we go. And so next we can simply bridge these edges here. There we go. And now I can simply insert loops here. And target weld here. And there we go. Now I have a solid object. We can double check by going into Edit Poly, Border, making the selection around here, and nothing is selected, which means there are no holes here. We have a solid airtight object here. So I'll just create a new box here. Alright, so if you're creating video game assets, one easy way to do this is just by, let's say, Edit Poly right here. First, you're going to create some basic shapes here. And see here, if I move this edge to the right, which I want to do because I want to create this shape, if I move this edge to the right and then I insert loops, you notice the loops will be a little bit lopsided here because they're following the topology. So I'll have to select them, play on the x-axis, play on the x-axis. But what I can do instead is before moving this edge, I can insert loops and then move this edge. And now I don't have to spend time making anything planar right here. So first you spend some time creating your basic shape right here. And then you can insert a lot of segments through here. And notice how once again the edges are a little bit lopsided here because of this kind of topology here. So what I can do in this case is insert a single loop here, play it on the x-axis, and now I want to insert loops here. Because they're going in between this loop and this loop, they will all be straight here, as opposed to using this loop right here. Alright, so I can make this my low poly object. Move this off to the side here. But now I want to make some quick adjustments here. I want to get rid of all these extra loops here. Alright, I can clean up a little bit more, get rid of these edges here, but let's say this is our very quick low poly that still needs a little bit more work. And now what we can do is quickly detail this. So once again here I will insert a loop, play it on the y-axis, and then right here as well. And now when I insert loops here, they will all be even here. Alright, so let's say I want to create some sort of interesting triangular details right here, which always kind of make your model look a lot nicer here. So I'm just going to use the cut tool like so. Alright, let's say something like this. And then I can hold down Shift while clicking to select all this here. Alright, but now if I try and use the default, let's say inset method, I get this result. Or the bevel method, I get this result. So what I would do is bevel inwards, but I won't outline. So in other words, I will just have a go inwards, increase the height, decrease the height, but not decrease the outline amount. I'll simply scale it like so. Now if I apply Turbo Smooth Open Subdiv here, notice you get this really bad result here. A quick fix for this is first of all to inset right here, but with a value of 0, and then simply scaling yourself. You may want to fix up some really bad areas, like let's say right here. Alright, but notice how we still get bad results right here. Well, in order to fix that, what you can do is simply, with these polygons selected, grow, Control I, and simply inset this. Now if you do this, it will only create topology around here. So notice how it's not affecting any other part of the mesh right here, just this right here. And now, as you can see, we have very smooth results without any flickering or bad issues happening here. And this will bake very nicely into our low poly. Now another thing here is that if you use bevels to add detail, so hold Shift, click, and also let's say right here. So let's say I just do a regular bevel like this. And let's say, for example, I apply crease set to crease this up. And I select these edges here. And create a set right here. Now many times these regular bevels will look quite boring here, and they won't really make your model pop out. So how can we make our bevels more interesting here? Well, a very simple thing you can do is simply to select these edges and either remove them, holding Control to remove the vertices as well, or simply moving them like so to get more of a curve right here. All right, and in the crease set, we're going to remove these so they won't be creased. And now I can right click and update since I got all the other ones. Or what I can do is just have them be selected. So select all the edges like this, and instead of doing update, you want to do subtract. And so now notice how we get this kind of detail instead, which just makes the bevels look a little bit more sleek, a little bit nicer here. What we can also do is scale these polygons like so. And now we get this much more interesting looking detail with our bevels as opposed to the previous result. Sometimes when we want to select something, it's a good idea to use a different orthographic view right here. So let's say I want to select the top of this. Well, instead of trying to kind of angle myself just right and get this kind of selection here, which is possible, maybe easier and faster just to go into the front viewport here, just to select this and move it up right here. Alright, so let's say I want to create some sort of detail right here. I'll just select these polygons here. You can press Alt-X, make things transparent, because sometimes you may end up accidentally selecting something on the other side right here. There we go. So I don't want to create this kind of detail right here. Let's make it a little bit more interesting by rotating it first. So notice how with this rotation mode, they all rotate around their individual axis right here, every polygon. And when you move your cursor around, the gizmo will actually change location. We have other rotation modes, for example, selection center. So it will take the center point of all your selected geometry and rotate around here. But in this case, it's not what we want. We may want to do this in some situations, but not in this one right here. So we want to use the first one right here, pivot point center. You can pretty much use any gizmo right here. Wherever it is, it gets the same result right here. And now we've got this kind of result right here. If you notice a little bit of distortion, you can fix that by just selecting these edges here. And maybe move them a little bit to the left right here. So here I've inserted a loop, play on the z-axis, and then kind of separate these details right here. So as I showed this detail right here, we can also make this detail more interesting by simply moving this up and to the left right here to maybe make the box a little bit more rounded here, which will also just make it a little bit more visually interesting right here. Sometimes you may want to switch the bevel type from group to local normal right here. So for example, I don't like this quite as much, but group just seems to be a little bit more interesting to look at here. So once again right here, to make this detail a little bit more interesting, I can select this right here, and I can use set flow right here, which will make your topology, your selection, match the surrounding flow better. Another quick way to add some interesting detail after getting this kind of inset and bevel result is to simply insert a loop here, and then you can bevel out this right here. Or for example, deselect this and then bevel. Or use hinge from edge, and then select an edge and bevel from here. Or just choose different points right here to get different interesting results right here. So hinge from edge is a great way to make your model look more sleek and more interesting here. And since I've created this kind of gap right here, we can use this gap to insert another detail right here. So if I insert a loop right here, it will go here. It won't interrupt these details right here. If I insert a loop right here, you can see how it does interrupt this detail right here. So what I can do is just, let's say, deselect these edges and just remove this right here. So when you insert a loop, it doesn't have to go all the way through the model. You can have it terminate somewhere. So for example, with these two loops, if I'm just creating a high poly, I can have these n-gons. I don't have to worry about them. This result will be fine. But if you're creating a more cinematic model, you may want to just terminate them right here without having to go through the entire model. Now, a way to speed this up is I'll just go ahead and remove these. First of all, you have to be in editable poly mode, so be sure to collapse, go back to editable poly mode. And then what you can do is that as you're modeling right here, you can just make a cut like this. Then you select these edges, you go into loops, build corner, and just quickly get this kind of topology right here. So for example, here I can just cut like this. Then with the edges selected, loops, build corner, and there we go. So you can see how I've created a space for this and insert a new detail inside right here. But you can also put this topology to use right here. As long as it's here, you can try to use it for something. So this could be a good example for using Hinge from edge. There we go. Set flow. But now you run into the risk of just overloading your model with detail here. So be careful about kind of managing your details. Make sure you don't have too many in one place right here. But this is just an example of how you can manage your topology right here, insert small details here, use your topology for more details, and just get some interesting results right here. Regularizer is a very useful script because you can just select something, press the hotkey for it. I just use Shift-Alt-D, and you get this quick result right here. What you can do beforehand is to inset first, so you can kind of create a border around this, kind of isolate your detail here, and then Regularizer. If I want to make this all smaller, I can just grow, and then shrink it down. But notice if I scale in the center, it's going to scale and move it a little bit down. The reason for this is because the gizmo right now, if I switch to the scale tool, the gizmo is using pivot point center. So it's taken this sub-object selection right here of polygons, and it's putting the gizmo right here in the center, which actually means that the gizmo is a little bit below the surface of this box right here. See, it's a little bit below there. So when you scale it, it's going to scale inside in that center, which means it's going to be scaling down a little bit. Notice how the whole thing has gone down, which means if you want to be even, you need to actually move this up a little bit here. And once again, you can use snaps for that. Axis constraints. However, what you can simply do, instead of doing that, is to simply, when you scale on just the Y and X axis right here. And notice how that problem is no longer happening. Notice how it's now even here. Hold Control, click here, convert to vertices, deselect the top vertices, and just move this up if you want to do a small detail like this. So here I just want to add some quick tape, and if I select the polygon and then hold shift, you can see how it loops. So what you want to do is you want to hold shift before you click on anything, you can get this kind of selection right here, and then detach as clone. So I've just set that to a hotkey. We click on this little icon right here on the right of detach and detach as clone. I'll give this a different color right here. Let's say an eye-catching yellow. What I can do is just kind of rotate around here so it's not perfectly applied. I want to give kind of a human touch to this. And we can just use this as some sort of quick tape to label what's inside this box. Virus sample, prototype weapon, T05 alpha. So I can just testlate this. And then what I can do is just pull out some vertices here. Pull out the corner vertices as well. Maybe rotate here. Maybe activate soft selection here. Alright, and then I want to smooth out these areas here a little bit as well. So I just go into freeform and then relax, soften. So this is just kind of a quick way of getting a more kind of organic effect here, because you want a kind of combination of hard surface things and kind of more smooth shapes here. You can of course always go into ZBrush and kind of sculpt this here, but this is just a quick way of doing this with polygons right here.